Welcome back, everyone. We're diving into some fascinating stuff today. We're going to be looking at Rumi's thoughts on time and purpose and those big mysteries of the universe.
Sounds intriguing.
Oh, it is. It really is. So this is episode 34, by the way. We're working with these amazing conversations between Dr. Dinani and Dr. Larijani.
40 audio files.
Audio files, yeah. And just a quick note, these are translated conversations, so we apologize in advance if some of those, delicate nuances get lost in translation. It happens. But, okay, let's unpack this. Have you ever felt like time's just dragging on, that nothing seems to satisfy?
All the time.
Right. There's actually a word for that in Iran. It's malal. And it's this feeling of unease, kind of a deep boredom that just gets under your skin.
Existential boredom.
Yeah, exactly. And Rumi, surprisingly, had some really interesting things to say about it.
Well, he was all about exploring those deeper levels of human experience.
Absolutely. Now, Dr. Dinani, he describes malal as this strange paradox. It's where time feels slow because you're not engaged, but then you can't find anything engaging enough to fill that time. It's like you're stuck.
Yeah, you're trapped in this cycle.
It's like being stuck in a rut, but you don't even have the energy to climb out. Makes you wonder, right? Why does time fly by when we're happy or absorbed in something, but just crawl by when we're in this state of malal?
Is it really about time itself or how we perceive it?
Right. That's the big question.
I think both Dr. Dinani and Dr. Larijani would agree. It's our emotional state, How we feel at any given moment, it really colors our experience of time.
That makes sense.
Rumi, being the insightful poet and mystic that he was, he understood this deeply. He suggests that one way to overcome this malal is to shift our focus. Move away from those superficial, everyday things we see at face value and dive into the deeper mysteries of the universe.
It's like rekindling that childlike sense of wonder and curiosity.
Oh, yeah.
Everything's new and exciting, full of possibilities.
Precisely. And this ties into Dr. Larijani's perspective as well. He argues that if we believe the world is full of secrets and mysteries just waiting to be discovered, even those feelings of malal become intriguing, like puzzles to be solved.
Okay, so instead of feeling bored or restless, you view that malal as a clue, like a sign that there's something deeper you're missing.
Exactly. A call to adventure, perhaps.
Okay. Now, this is where things get really interesting. Dr. Dinani brings up our human limitations. Like, there's only so much time in a day, right?
Yeah, we're finite beings.
Only so much we can accomplish in a lifetime. How does that fit into Rumi's view of malal?
Well, he uses the example of the human lifespan. Even a figure like the Prophet Noah, who supposedly lived for centuries, even with such a long life, it's still finite.
Right.
He's emphasizing that recognizing our limitations isn't about pessimism, but about being realistic, focusing on what truly matters within the time we do have.
So it's about choosing how we spend our time, not getting bogged down by things that won't ultimately fulfill us.
Exactly. And Dr. Larijani takes this idea of limitations even further. He says the key is to shift our focus from the finite world to the infinite. He uses this captivating example. Imagine someone completely captivated by a beautiful face.
They're drawn to that beauty.
Right, but then feel a sense of loss when they're apart from that person.
It's like that saying, beauty fades, but...
Exactly. Dr. Larijani argues that if that person understood the secret behind beauty, that essence that goes beyond just a physical form, that longing wouldn't be so intense.
They'd find a deeper connection.
A lasting one. Because they've tapped into something timeless.
It's like realizing that everything in this world is constantly changing, constantly renewing itself. Like a river, always flowing, never the same from one moment to the next.
Beautiful analogy. And Dr. Dinani actually touches upon that very idea. He talks about how we can never truly grasp a single moment because by the time we try to hold on to it, it's gone.
It's already slipped away.
He uses this powerful image. He says, the moment you try to grasp a moment, it has already slipped into the next. It's a reminder that life is a continuous flow of experiences. Each moment is unique and fleeting.
So instead of clinging to the past or worrying about the future, we should just embrace this flow, this constant becoming, find joy in the present.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And this is where Dr. Dinani brings in some of Rumi's poetry to really drive home the point. Rumi wrote, with each breath, the world is made new, and we, in our pursuit of permanence, remain unaware of this constant becoming.
I love that. Makes me think about the importance of silence. It's in those quiet moments that we can really tune into those subtle shifts, those little nuances of experience.
Yeah.
And appreciate the richness of life.
Such an important point. And both experts touch on this idea of silence as a key to understanding a deeper reality. Dr. Dinani says it best. Silence is the language of God. All else is poor translation.
Wow.
In a world that's so full of noise and information, it's essential to create that space for silence within ourselves.
It's like clearing away all the static so we can hear a deeper frequency.
Exactly.
So it's about making time for those moments of stillness. Whether it's meditation, spending time in nature, or just finding little pockets of quiet time throughout the day.
It's about cultivating an inner space where we can connect with that deeper wisdom, that inner voice that often gets drowned out by the noise of the external world.
And Dr. Dinani reminds us of this incredibly powerful concept from the Quran, that God is always with us.
It's a challenging idea.
Yeah, it's an idea that can be hard to wrap your head around. But if we really reflect on it, well, it has huge implications for how we live our lives.
Think about it. If you were constantly in the presence of someone you deeply respected, how would your behavior change?
I'd be much more mindful, that's for sure.
Right. You'd be more mindful of your words and actions. Recognizing that we are always in the presence of the divine can bring a whole new level of awareness and intention to our lives.
It's like realizing we're never truly alone, that there's this constant source of support and guidance even when we don't consciously feel it. And to wrap up this part of our deep dive, I have to share this incredibly captivating metaphor from Rumi. He says, "In the tavern of awakening there is an elixir. If you undertake this work, you can turn dust into gold." That is beautiful. What is this elixir that Rumi speaks of? What is the work we need to do to turn the ordinary, the dust of our everyday lives, into something truly extraordinary?
That is the question, isn't it? And that's something we'll explore further in our next segment.
Stay tuned. We'll be right back after a short break.
Picking up from that image of turning dust into gold, right? I think that's where the concept of intention comes in. Dr. Dinani, in these files, he explains how our intentions, the energy we put out into the world, it can ripple outward and really shape our reality.
It can.
Oh, yeah. If we approach everything with love, with kindness and generosity, those qualities, they'll manifest in our experiences.
Makes sense.
But, of course, the opposite is true, too.
Oh, right.
If we're operating from a place of fear or anger or resentment, those negative emotions, well, they find their way back to us as well.
It's like that idea of you get what you give, or what goes around comes around. But Rumi seems to be saying it goes even deeper than that.
Yeah.
That we have the power to choose our intentions, to shape how we approach each moment.
Exactly. And that's where mindfulness comes in.
Mm-hmm.
Both Dr. Dinani and Dr. Larijani, they talk about how important it is to be present in each moment. By becoming more aware of our thoughts, feelings, and motivations, we can start to see the patterns that might be holding us back.
Like habits of mind that keep us stuck.
Exactly, those habits of mind.
Yeah.
And Dr. Larijani adds this: we need to be mindful of the company we keep.
Oh, interesting.
He compares it to tending a garden.
Oh, I like that.
If you want beautiful flowers to bloom, you have to make sure the soil is healthy, you plant the right seeds, and you weed out anything that might hinder their growth. So if we want to cultivate those positive qualities within ourselves, we need to surround ourselves with people and influences that support that growth.
That's a great analogy.
Right.
It's like saying that our environment really shapes who we become.
It does.
If we're constantly around negativity, it's going to be so much harder to stay focused on what matters and to cultivate those positive qualities within ourselves.
It is. And Dr. Dinani is quick to point out, though, that it's not about judging others. Everyone is on their own path, and we all have our own struggles.
Right.
The key is to be mindful of the energy we share with others.
Okay.
And to make choices that support our own journey and aspirations.
So it's about setting healthy boundaries, knowing when to step back from situations that drain our energy, and finding connections that inspire us.
Absolutely. And you know what? Dr. Larijani points out something kind of interesting here. He says that even difficult relationships can teach us valuable things about ourselves.
Oh, so you're saying that every interaction, it's a chance to learn something.
Every interaction.
To see a reflection of ourselves that we might not see otherwise.
Exactly. And this is where Rumi's idea of compassion comes in. He emphasizes the importance of seeing that divine spark in everyone, even those who might seem unlovable or difficult.
Not that we have to condone harmful behavior, but try to understand where people are coming from and recognize that everyone's struggling in their own way.
Absolutely. And Dr. Dinani reminds us that forgiveness, it's crucial for our own inner peace. Holding on to anger and resentment, it hurts us more than anyone else.
It does.
It's like we're carrying around a heavy weight burdened by negativity, and that prevents us from being truly free.
Exactly.
And forgiveness is about releasing that burden, letting go of the past and making space for healing. But of course, you might be thinking, how do you forgive someone who's really hurt you?
That's what I was going to ask. I mean, forgiveness is a beautiful concept, but it can be so hard to put into practice.
It can be. Dr. Lorijani has a really interesting suggestion. He says it starts with ourselves. Can we forgive ourselves for our own mistakes, the ways we've hurt others, even if we didn't mean to? Self-compassion, he suggests, is the foundation for being able to offer compassion to other people.
That makes a lot of sense. Like you can't pour from an empty cup. You have to fill yourself up with compassion first.
Right. And Dr. Dinani adds that as we cultivate compassion, we naturally start to see the world with more understanding and forgiveness. We don't have to condone someone's actions to forgive them.
Oh?
We can still hold them accountable while choosing to let go of the anger and resentment that's weighing us down.
So you're saying it's possible to acknowledge that someone's actions were wrong, even harmful, but still choose to forgive them?
It's about separating the person from their actions, Dr. Lorijani says, recognizing their inherent worth. And he adds that forgiveness doesn't mean we forget or that we allow ourselves to be hurt again. It's about setting healthy boundaries, protecting ourselves, while choosing to release that bitterness.
It's not about being a doormat. It's about liberating ourselves from the negativity that can keep us from moving forward.
Exactly. And Dr. Dinani uses a really vivid analogy. He says, holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die.
It really is self-destructive.
It is. And Dr. Lorijani makes a point of saying forgiveness isn't weak. It actually takes a lot of strength.
It does.
It's about choosing compassion over anger. It's about reclaiming your power, choosing how you want to respond instead of letting your emotions control you.
And it sounds like both Dr. Dinani and Dr. Lorijani agree that true forgiveness can transform relationships and bring healing.
It can. Dr. Dinani describes it as breaking a chain. It frees both the person offering forgiveness and the person being forgiven. It's an act of grace that can change everything.
So it's a conscious choice to let go of the past and embrace the present with an open heart.
Exactly. And Dr. Dinani shares this beautiful quote from Rumi. He says, "The wound is the place where the light enters you."
Wow. Even our most painful experiences can be opportunities for growth and transformation if we approach them with the right mindset.
Rumi is reminding us that even in our darkest moments, there is always hope.
So it's about finding that glimmer of light, that spark of resilience within ourselves, even when things feel impossible.
And Dr. Lorijani is quick to remind us that we're not alone in this. There's a force, a presence that supports and guides us, that offers unconditional love.
It's like even when we're struggling, there's something holding us, whispering encouragement, gently guiding us towards healing. To close out this part of our deep dive, I want to share another one of Rumi's metaphors that really struck me. Be like a tree and let the dead leaves drop. What do you make of that?
It is a powerful image, isn't it? Like letting go of what no longer serves us, those old patterns and beliefs that are holding us back.
Yeah, it's like saying we have to shed those things, like a tree shedding its leaves in autumn, to make room for new growth.
Exactly. Rumi's urging us to embrace those natural cycles, surrender to that process of growth and transformation. And that brings us to one of his most profound and maybe most challenging teachings, the concept of dying before you die.
That does sound a little ominous. What did he mean by that? Is he talking about physical death?
Dr. Dinani explains that it's not literal. It's about a metaphorical death, a shedding of the ego, that limited sense of self that keeps us so attached to the material world, to our desires and fears.
So it's about letting go of all of that, our fears, our attachments, the things that are keeping us from experiencing true freedom.
Yes, Dr. Lorijani adds that it's about transcending that sense of separateness, of me versus other. It's about recognizing the interconnectedness of everything and experiencing that sense of unity with something much greater than ourselves.
It's like realizing that we are all part of something bigger, that we're all connected like drops in a vast ocean.
Exactly. And both experts agree that this realization can be freeing, but also terrifying. It requires a willingness to surrender to the unknown, to let go of control, and embrace the mystery of life.
It's like taking a leap of faith, stepping off a cliff without knowing what's below, but trusting that you'll be supported.
Yes. Dr. Lorijani reminds us that this process of dying before you die, it's not a one-time thing. It's a continuous practice. It's about constantly questioning our assumptions, being willing to let go of old patterns and embrace new ways of being.
So it's about becoming more fluid, more adaptable, like water, right? Instead of being rigid, trying to force our way through life, We learn to flow with the current.
Dr. Dinani uses that analogy, actually, of a river to describe this. A river that flows freely, adapting to the curves and bends of the landscape, is much more resilient than a river that tries to force its way through. It's about learning to go with the flow, to embrace change.
Rumi is so famous for his passionate poetry about love. Is he talking about romantic love here, or something more universal?
Dr. Larijani explains that, for Rumi, love was the driving force of the universe. It's that energy that connects everything. And he believed that experiencing true love, in any form, could open our hearts to a deeper connection with the divine.
So it's not just about romance, but about cultivating a deep appreciation for the beauty and wonder of life, that feeling of connection to everything around us.
Dr. Dinani adds that for Rumi, love wasn't just a feeling, it was a state of being. It's about transcending that limited perspective of the ego and experiencing a sense of unity with everything.
It's like recognizing that we are all part of one big family, connected by these invisible threads of love and compassion.
Yes, and Dr. Larijani cautions us that this kind of love isn't always easy. It requires patience, forgiveness, and a willingness to really see each other.
So it's about choosing to see the good in others, even when they're being difficult. It's about responding with kindness and understanding, even when we've been hurt.
Exactly. And Dr. Dinani shares this beautiful quote from Rumi that really sums it up. Your task is not to seek for love, but merely to seek and find all the barriers within yourself that you have built against it.
That's so powerful. It's like he's saying that love is already there inside of us, but we've built up all these walls that are blocking it.
And by removing those barriers, by really opening our hearts, we allow that love to flow through us. And that can transform us and the world around us.
It's like opening a window and letting the sunlight stream in. To wrap things up, you have a final thought from Rumi that we can leave our listeners with?
I do. It's one of my favorites, actually. Out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right-doing, there is a field. I'll meet you there.
Wow, I love that. It speaks to this place of unity, beyond judgment. It makes me think of Rumi's ideas of love and forgiveness, letting go of that sense of separateness.
And Dr. Dinani reminds us that this field is always there for us, no matter where we are on our journey. All we have to do is open our hearts and step into it.
It's such a beautiful reminder that we're not alone, that there's a place of love and acceptance that's always waiting for us. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the world of Rumi. We hope you've been as inspired by his wisdom as we have.
We encourage you to explore his poetry further. There's so much to discover, and we think his words can offer a path to a more fulfilling life. Until next time, may you find moments of peace and joy, and may your heart be filled with the light of love.